The one who does machines, Donatello, and his sidekick, Metalhead. Donatello is melee with 14 health. Metalhead is melee with 14 health. And they have a move of 2. When you maneuver, you may draw 2 cards instead of 1. If you do, put a card in your hand on the bottom of your deck. After you play an invention, tuck it under this card. Taking a look here first at his 3 inventions. Donatello, only cards. First one's an attack of 2, boost of 3. During combat is remove up to 4 attack or versatile cards in your discard pile from the game. Add +1 to this card's value for each card removed. And the tucked effect is add +1 to the value of your attacks. And then we have a 2-value defense, self-defense grid. Donatello, 3 boost. And each of these are only 1 copy. After combat, remove up to 4 defense or versatile cards from your discard pile from the game. Donatello recovers that much health. And the tucked ability is add +1 to the value of your defense. Smoke Bomb. Scheme Donatello, 3 boost, 1 copy. Remove up to 4 scheme cards in your discard pile from the game. Gain that many actions. The tuck ability is when you play a scheme, gain 1 action. And then we have Shift Focus. Donatello, 2-value versatile, 3 copies. After combat, move another fighter in Donatello's zone up to 3 spaces. They may move through other fighters. Bow Staff, 2 copies. 3-value defense card, Donatello. After combat, deal 1 damage to an opposing fighter adjacent to Donatello. Draw 1 card. Heroes in a half shell, 5-value defense. 2 copies. No effect. Party Wagon is a scheme card, Donatello only, 2 copies. Move a friendly fighter up to 5 spaces. They may move through opposing fighters. Then deal 2 damage to an opposing fighter they move through. Donatello does machines. 2 copies, 3 boost. Donatello only scheme. You and each other friendly player may return an attack, versatile, or defense card in their discard pile to their hand. Draw 1 card. 3-value attack any. 3 copies, thinking ahead. After combat, if you won the combat, you may put a card in your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. Turtle Power any. 3-value attack and 3 boost, 2 copies. During combat, you may boost this card. Quick Strike is an any versatile 3 copies. After combat, draw 1 card. Then here we have Short Circuit, 3 copies. 3-value versatile any. Immediately cancel all after combat effects on your opponent's card. Then the Metalhead cards, 3-value versatile, 3 copies. Untested enhancements. During combat, discard the bottom card of your deck. Add as a boost value to this card's value. Then a Metalhead scheme, 2 copies. The Future of Ninjutsu. Look at the top card of any deck. You may put it on the bottom. Draw 1 card, gain 1 action. Now Donatello here is a pretty fun character, but he's not without his weaknesses. He's pretty good, but yeah, again, he has weaknesses just like most other fighters, and you can exploit them. So you got to be careful when you're playing Donatello if your opponent is trying to exploit that weakness, especially with certain characters, and we'll see that here in his deck. So Donatello being melee and Metalhead being melee is just fine. Most characters are melee anyway. 14 health, 7 health, that's all right. Move of 2, of course, that's basic. But what really sets him apart from other characters is his ability. When you maneuver, you may draw 2 cards instead of 1. If you do, put a card in your hand on the bottom of your deck. So if you had a hand of 3 and you drew 2 cards instead of 1, you not only get to choose from the 2 that you just drew, but from your entire hand, what you want to put on the bottom of your deck. And so you're going to have to be careful in playing as such so that you can benefit from that. And so you're going to see that you can really go through your deck and manipulate your deck to how you want it, as long as it's not being reshuffled for any reason. I recommend also maybe you have a little piece of paper so you can remember what is on the bottom in what order. Once you get to it, it could be very important late game. Another thing is he has kind of like a secondary ability. After you play an invention, tuck it under this card. What are inventions? Well, I'm glad you asked. He has 3 different inventions: attack, defense, and scheme inventions. So the first one here is the electro grenade. During combat, remove up to 4 attack or versatile cards in your discard pile from the game. Add +1 to this card's value for each card removed. And what you're going to do after for each of these is tuck them, after you play them, you tuck them under this card. So you have to play it for an attack, a defense, or a scheme. You cannot boost with it and then tuck it under or something of that nature, right? So what you need to do is, for Electro Grenade, is have exactly 4 attack or versatile cards that you don't want and remove them from the game. Because when they're removed from the game, there's no way of getting them back, and he has a few cards that get cards back, put them on the bottom of their deck or into their deck, and then you draw a card, or into his hand and then he draws a card. So you can get these back too, in the case that maybe somebody random discarded, right? And these are quite essential to your game plan, because without these you're just kind of a basic character, but with these you have +1 on your attack, +1 on your defense, and when you scheme you gain an action. So that's his Electro Grenade. Let's keep that out. So for this defense, a 2 defense isn't that great, but you get to remove up to 4 defensive versatile cards in your discard pile from the game. And then Donatello recovers that much health. Of course, you want to be down a little bit of health. That means you can recover up to 4 health, which puts you at 18 if you're playing it right. So for this card, it's the same pretty much as the Electro Grenade. You just got to be very careful of what you're discarding and when you're playing it, because of course you want to recover the health, but there's kind of a little balance there, because if you play this early, well, you're not taking as much damage. So depending on the character that you're playing against, if they have high attack values and stuff as well, as opposed to maybe 3s, 2s especially, right? 2s, 3s, 4s. But if they're getting really high on those, of course you want to play this at the proper time. I don't think you're hurting that much if you don't play it like at the exact correct moment. But the correct moment would be when you have 4 cards that you don't want that you can remove from the game. Say Metalhead cards, if Metalhead was already dead early game or something like that. Obviously those are the cards you want to prioritize for removing. And then for the rest of the game, you get +1 on defense. So that means every single one of your defense or attack cards, if you just take a quick look here, and this applies for the Electro Grenade and self-defense grid, all these attack and defense that you see are going to be +1 for the rest of the game. And your opponent has no way of getting rid of these. And lastly, we have a Smoke Bomb Scheme. So this is the easiest one to play because you don't need to play it on defense or attack. But when you play a scheme, you gain an action. That's a tuck ability. The regular ability, or effect rather, is remove up to 4 scheme cards in your discard pile from the game. Gain that many actions. So this could be extremely beneficial, especially in conjunction with some of your other cards, such as the Future of Ninjutsu, Party Wagon, Donatello Does Machines, these other schemes, and even some of your other cards, which, draw you cards and whatnot. So if you're playing this and keeping your opponent on the back foot and you're drawing cards and you are really putting on the pressure, this card will obviously help you put on extreme amounts of pressure, because you play this, you have 2 actions, you play this, you gain 4 actions for removing 4 schemes. That's 5 actions on your turn, which is absolutely bonkers, right? So for me, this one is a little bit different than the other 2 in that I like to play this when I definitely have 4 schemes in there, because I like that one turn of just going in. But make sure you've planned for that one turn of going in and dwindling down their hand so you can get one of these other big hits in. And hopefully you already have the Electro Grenade, so you have a +1, for example. The other option for this is you play it early. You're not gaining any actions, but each time you play one of these schemes, you gain an action. So it's like more spaced out throughout the game that you are putting on the pressure instead of all at once. And really, that's up to you. I think it's best on the second one, especially with for my first recommendation, especially for players that know what they're doing, and because usually they know when to back away when they have their cards, and to build up their hands so that, okay, even if you got 3 actions on your turn from playing a scheme or something, it really won't matter that much to them because they'll be ready for it. And so those are his 3 inventions and quite essential to his game plan. If they're ever discarded, you do have ways of getting them back, and we'll see that here with a couple of these cards. So keep that in mind, that you're not at a loss if you lose those. Let's take a look here now at let's take a look first at the Donatello cards, the pure Donatello cards from his deck. And then we'll take a look at the Any, and then we'll take a look at Metalhead. So first up, we have Shift Focus. This one lets you move another fighter in Donatello's zone up to 3 spaces. They may move through other fighters. So this is, if you're using this on defense, and keep in mind it could be a 3 with 3 defense or 3 attack, as from the boost of from your invention cards. But for this, you could play it on attack or defense. If you're playing it on defense, and it was their second action and they're done with their actions, you get to move another fighter in Donatello's zone, not just adjacent, in the zone. So you can move Metalhead or one of their fighters and place them accordingly so that you're ready to fight. If it's a ranged fighter, you can bring them in, for example. If you're playing on an attack, you can put some spacing between you, or position for Metalhead to attack or something like that. Or put them in a bad spot. You know, if you're on hanging guarded, you could put them in a bad spot so that you get a plus on your next attack or something of that nature. And next up here, we have a defense bow staff. This is deal 1 damage to an opposing fighter adjacent to Donatello. And remember, it could be a 4, 2 copies of this. Not only that, you get to draw a card. So obviously you're using this on defense, and that's good because you're able to keep your hand up, because then you can go in for that pressure, hopefully later. And 1 damage isn't, just nothing. It's just a little chip damage, a little extra damage. And maybe for their 1 health sidekicks, if that's the problem here. Another thing is you can use this with Shift Focus, so you move from their hero adjacent to a sidekick, then you have this in your hand, and you're able to get rid of one of their sidekicks if their sidekick attacks you or something like that. And then Heroes in a Half Shell is a 5, potentially a 6, and no effect. So obviously you're going to want to play this when they play a big old number that you can't cancel, because you actually cannot cancel that well, and we'll see that here in a minute with Short Circuit. All right, Party Wagon is a scheme that moves a friendly fighter up to 5 spaces, so that's either Donatello or Metalhead in a 1v1. They may move through opposing fighters and deal 2 damage to an opposing fighter they move through. So it doesn't deal damage to all of them, just 1, so choose wisely. Maybe you do want to get rid of the sidekick first. And of course, that's easy chip damage. There's 2 copies, that's 4. So that's really nice. And it's a little bit different than some of the other cards in this game that do that deal 2 damage with a scheme for moving or in your zone or something like that. This is a lot nicer because you're able to play this. You get positioning, you could run away after, you could attack after, and it gets you in there and does 2 damage, and people can't pin you with that. And nobody wants to be pinned. All right, Donatello Does Machines is the card I was talking about. There's 2 copies of this. It draws a card at the end, but you and each other friendly player may return an attack, versatile, or defense. So you're not returning any scheme cards, so you can't recursion this into itself, but you can get these back if you need to. These 2 attack or defense cards if you need to. If they've been discarded for any reason, then you can get those back. And it goes to their hand, notice. So if you've already played the scheme card, you play this. This gains you an action, and it lets you choose a card in your discard pile and draw. So if you play this on your first turn, or the first action on your turn, then you are essentially drawing 2 cards, and one of them you get to choose from your discard pile. So that could be really nice and kind of out of nowhere, where they think that you don't have enough cards to attack them, then you have 2, and you've gained the action with the scheme and haven't wasted any actions. You have 2 actions still, and suddenly you have an extra card in your hand. Turtle Power can max be boosted by a 3, but remember it can be boosted by this effect as well on your Electro Grenade. So 4, 5, 6, 7. It could be a 7 attack. Be careful not to throw away any cards that you need for this, because it can be tempting sometimes. And maybe you do need to do that, but be careful about it. All right, Thinking Ahead is kind of an interesting card because 3 isn't that great, but it isn't any, so Donatello or Metalhead can come in and use it. And something I would recommend, just in general, with this deck, and this goes for Unmatched in general with sidekicks, usually. If you're not getting the value out of the sidekick with their cards, or their cards are gone, or you don't need their cards, you think, for the matchup, use them as a shield, obviously. For this deck, Donatello's sidekick, Metalhead, can use a lot of the cards that Donatello can use, and he still benefits from the effect on the that are tucked under here. So he still gets the +1 and the +1 defense and scheme. So, he's essentially Donatello without a few cards. All right, so thinking ahead, if you won the combat, you may put a card in your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. Now, maybe you want to play this, so it could be a 4. The condition is if you win. So obviously, the best time to play this would be when it's a 4 and you can deal damage, and then you get to put cards on the bottom of your deck, and you're not decking out as fast, and you know what's on the bottom of your deck. And we're going to see why knowing what card on the bottom of your deck is important here in a moment when we get to the Donatello card, or the Metalhead card. All right, Short Circuit. I mentioned this before. There's 3 copies, which is cool, and a potential 4, which is great. The immediately is cancel all after combat effects on your opponent's card. That's actually really debilitating. And I'd say it's his biggest weakness, because there are so many characters that have during combats that you don't want to mess with and that you definitely want to cancel and play around. But for Donatello, he cannot. So what you got to do for Donatello is use something like Heroes in a Half Shell at a 6 or even at a 5, depending on what they're playing, because a lot of the cards are going to be big value cards, like they're boosting or discarding from your hand or something like that. So you'll need to use that instead of something like cancel the effect. And there's just some characters you won't be able to cancel their during combat effects, their immediate effects. It's still very useful because there's a lot of good after combat effects, but obviously you're missing out on canceling 2 different things, the immediate and the during, and especially those during combat effects. So you got to really be careful as Donatello playing against characters. You got to know what their during combat effects are and know how to play around those. And like I said, maybe you have Metalhead in there to take those kind of hits for you instead. Very dangerous for Donatello. Okay, so this is a pretty unassuming card. It's quick strike, and it's just draw 1 card. But obviously, keeping your hand up is very important. There's 3 copies, and it can be a 4. So why not, right? And this can be played to keep your hand up and kind of whittle theirs down. If you play that on first action, you're still keeping your hand up. And then, so if they end it next to you, you attack with this, it's a 4. Maybe they cancel, maybe they don't. But if they don't, you're drawing the card, and then you can kind of go into some other things, such as your smoke bomb scheme and gain 4 actions, and then really go in for an attack, and you've already drawn a card and such. So it can really catch them off guard when recursion, when you get cards back in your hand. And we see that here with the Future of Ninjutsu. So let's talk about that one first, a little out of order. Look at the top card of any deck, you may put it on the bottom. So if you played this on the previous turn and then your next turn you go in with something like Smoke Bomb, you're able to discard this card for 1. And you're able to draw a card, so you're not wasting that action of pressure, of the idea of keeping pressure up, and same with gaining an action, keeping that pressure up. And so if they maneuver on their turn, you know what card is in their hand, at least one of them. And, well, if you put it back on top. So if you put back on an attack or a scheme, then they won't, that they won't have a defense in their hand. It's kind of like Do My Bidding from Dracula's deck and Philippa's deck, where it returns it to their hand. Okay, I know what they got. Now I can go in for an attack because I see they only have 1 defense and I gained a bunch of actions, And that's very, it can really catch people off guard, and, they can still play that defense depending on what action. So they could take the first hit thinking that maybe you're playing a weaker attack, so maybe you want to play the better attack, the higher value attack on your first action, Anyway, that's just little games, little mind games, and essential things that you can do during the game of Unmatched. Now, the last card we're going to look at here is Untested Enhancements. This is a Metalhead card. This card, the bottom card of your deck, adds its boost value to this card's value. So you're discarding it, so you need to make sure that it's a card you don't need. And with his ability of drawing 2 cards and putting 1 under, every turn, you could just maneuver, put something under that you know is going to boost well, and that you don't need. Maybe the 3, it becomes a 6. Instead of keeping this thinking, oh, well, I want that for the boost as well. Well, this is only a 5 if you boosted the other way around, right? But this way, if you keep Metalhead alive, you hit him with a 6, possibly 7. So that's really cool. So you're just being careful about which card you're putting on the bottom of your deck. If it is a 3, if you're going for the bigger hit, usually the 3s are kind of the cards you want to keep. But if it's a 2 and a 1, not as good, obviously. Donatello clearly gets stronger as the game goes on. So if you can start closing out midway through the game, trying to close out the game, that's really great, obviously. And the greatest thing about Donatello is the fact that he can really, with his ability, he can really manipulate his deck and get what he wants when he wants. Usually, these aren't too far off. If they are on the bottom, well, every turn that you're taking, you're bringing it up further to the top. So it's not as big a problem. Obviously, it would be one of your bigger problems that you would have on top of the short circuit not being as good as it could have been. Which, okay, he does need a weakness. He's a pretty strong turtle. He's a pretty strong character in general. He's, by no means S tier or something, but he's up there, and he can hold his own against a lot of fighters, even with those problems, because of the strengths that he has, mostly in Smoke Bomb, and then keeping these as little boosts, almost like a Sinbad for his boosts of movement. Well, this is a boost for defense, attack, and you can always do it. It's not like Alice, where you got to flip and decide when to have your defense or attack be boosted. This is throughout the whole game if you're playing it right. So remember, you're playing your 4 cards, remove up to 4 cards for defense or versatile, remove up to 4 attack or versatile, and you'll get those abilities. You kind of want to do that as early as you can to where you're also still benefiting from it. And maybe you do just want to throw out Electro Grenade, get it out, and get the +1. Maybe you do want to throw out defense, self-defense grid, and get the +1 on defense right away. More so with Electro Grenade because you're not taking damage, right? Hopefully. And even if they cancel it, it still gets tucked under your card and you're getting that ability. So those cards are super essential for his game plan. Don't sleep on them and use them wisely. If they get discarded, thankfully, you have ways of getting certain cards back from the discard pile. In Donatello Does Machines, and so that's pretty nice. Donatello, even though he's move with 2, not that great of health, he can get really scary. And when the opponent sees these 3 cards out there, it usually keeps them back in drawing, especially with the scheme. So, that's essentially what you want to do, and they should be aware of that. So be careful. And when you go in, make sure that you have a little bit of knowledge of not just your own deck, your own hand, but of what they have. And you can do that a little bit with the future of ninjutsu. And if they only have a little bit of cards and you've kept the pressure up, well, great, because now you can go in for those big hits. Be careful not to waste action. So if you're doing something like Party Wagon before your scheme card is played, well, you're not gaining the action. You can still move in with this on first action and attack, but you're not gaining the action. Now, if you had played the action gain, you could do that, right? And then you gain this action, and so it just depends when you want to use each of these cards, and that's really the main thing with Donatello. Make sure that you're setting up and piling your cards on the bottom of your deck and discarding from your hand with your ability, right? So you're drawing 2, putting 1 under, not discarding, but placing under the bottom of your deck so that you know what the lineup is, and so that especially late game, you are really scared, because late game he should have all 3 of these out, ideally, right? He should have all 3 of these inventions out, and you should also know the order of your deck. Anyway, that is Donatello. I hope that helps you understand him just a little bit better and helps your plays. He's a high level. Well, I'd say most of the characters in this game aren't super high level. I think anyone can get a grasp on them with just a few plays. Anyway, let me know if I left anything out, if you have any other tips or ideas in the comments below.